Hey, didn't see you there. Welcome to Radtime Customs. So today I'm at my parents' house. They were nice enough to move their cars out of their garage. Their garage is much bigger than mine, so it gives me some room to move around, because today I'm going to be radiusing the wheel wells on the back of the 48 to fit the slicks. So right now the car's up on jack stands, the rear end's just hanging down, the slicks are on the rear end, and now I'll jack up the rear end to see how much we're going to have to take off of these rear fenders. So here are my street tires. They're on a 15x7 chrome reversed wheel. Here are my Hoosier slicks that are on a 15x8 chrome reversed wheel. These are 29 by 10.5 15s D06 Hoosiers. Now, they aren't quite as tall as the street tire, so what I'm going to do is take the street tire and use it to make my template of where I'm going to cut. So we take the street tire, put it on top of a piece of cardboard, and then I'll just go and trace around the street tire and give myself a little bit of an extra gap here. And once that's all traced out, then I can just take this and set it up against the car. So I have some areas that I'll show you in a minute where I locate this with based off of the fender. So what I did here is I just put some masking tape around the area that the cardboard's going to lay on top of, so I can just trace it onto the masking tape and not onto the paint from the fender. An outline of the template has been drawn onto the fender. This right here is one of my areas that I used to find out where I wanted to locate it. So I just traced along, and then the other area is just up in here. So it's pretty much the upper corners that got me to center it where I wanted it. And at the bottom I'll kind of taper it out at some point. But here's the rough line of where I'm going to cut. This is the stressful part. So now that we know where to cut, time to start cutting. I'm going to take my time with this, go nice and slow. This video is sped up about 3 times faster than I'm actually going. And what I'm doing here is by going slow, I can kind of angle the grinder however I need to keep creating a circle and not have a bunch of flat lines. Also, the tape is helping with the paint staying on the fender of the car. The longer you spend with cutting, the hotter the area is going to get, and it wants to start bubbling up the paint and peeling the paint off. So the masking tape kind of helps keep it attached to the car and will do a little bit less paint damage when all's said and done. So you'll see here I'm curving the grinder so that I use the circle of the cutting disc to maintain a circle pattern. That way I don't have just a bunch of flat lines that need to get smoothed out later. Now this does take quite a bit of time if you're trying to do a clean job. I'm going over this real lightly, and then I just keep coming back and making more passes across the line so that I'm able to maintain the circle. If I went and cut all the way through it, I would risk creating some jagged edges. So I'm going across it and just doing a nice little thin swipe with the grinder, and then I go back and then cut all the way through it. And sometimes it's 2 or 3 times of making passes before I'm all the way through. Then when you're working on the bottom, you want to make sure that you cut all the way through at your final cut down below, so it cuts through the fender as it folds underneath. So now I'm going to slowly peel the tape one at a time, just to make sure that the paint doesn't come off along with the tape. So do the first few fairly slow, kind of see what you're working with, and then you can go across and start grabbing multiples and pulling them off slowly as well. You're just trying to make sure you don't peel the paint off the car. So now I'm using a flap disc to clean up the area that I cut. This is getting all those strands that kind of get left behind the metal here. And then I'm also using it for any of these little jagged edges that just seem to happen while I was cutting. So I'm just taking this and using this to help not only just clean up the metal, but also reshape it to make sure it's a little more circular. Now this is another thing that you do want to spend some time on. This is creating the overall diameter of what's going around your tire. So if you have a lot of jagged edges, they'll show. So really take your time and clean it up and make it look as good as you can. Now I'll lift the rear end back up into place and see how we're looking with our gap. That's right height. Time to drop it down from off the jack and take it out on the street, see if the suspension settles and if I'm going to have to cut some more off of it. So after launching it a couple times, it revealed that the weight transfer actually does come down quite a bit and was rubbing up on the tires. So it'll take a little bit more clearancing. By the time I got to this point here, I believe I cut about another 1/4 of an inch diameter out of it. And this is what I was left with.